Welcome back to the It's Too Easy podcast. It's Zach and Jake back with another show, getting ready for college football week number one. So, Jake, what do we have on the slate for this week?
Yeah, so obviously week one, going to be out of division games for the first few weeks of college football season. So obviously the games aren't quite as fun this week, but there are a few in there that are going to be some eye candy for us for the first opening week of college football. So I'm looking forward to that. The first game on our list that we really like is Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Obviously, Texas A&M is coming in with a small favorite in this one. But you and I talked about this a few weeks ago. We think Notre Dame is going to be a really, really good team this year and kind of just fly under the radar for the majority of the year. And this game expected to be no different. They're going to start out the year on a hot note. So we are going to take them plus 3.5.
Yeah, I definitely like the plus 3.5. Texas A&M's good. They got the quarterback that was slinging it for 400 a game last year. So I think that's why everyone's high on them at home to start the year. I do think this is probably Notre Dame's toughest matchup of the year. So going on the road, if they're going to get a loss, this would be it early, but I definitely think they keep it close. I'm excited to see what Notre Dame's made of this year. Obviously, the running back situation is going to look a little different, as is the quarterback. They have Riley Leonard, I believe is his name, that came over from Duke,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. But I like him. I like what he showed last year when he was healthy. He's a dual threat, and Notre Dame's defense is always good. So excited to see that matchup, and I'll definitely take Notre Dame with a field goal.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. It is away, so obviously it's not a great way to start the season, but Notre Dame is going to fly under the radar and don't expect anything less week one. Next game that kind of caught our eyes, LSU and USC. Obviously, that's going to be a big matchup early on in the season. Not sure exactly how USC is going to look this year with losing Caleb and losing kind of a few offensive guys around them. I know their defense is expected to be a lot better, but I just don't think they're going to be able to hold up as well against LSU's receivers. I'm not sure exactly who their quarterback is, but they've been able to get
Grant
the ball to
Nussmeier.
whoever. Okay, well, he's going to have the opportunity to get it to stud wide receivers, I'm sure. So if they can do that and get past USC's secondary, I expect them to win the game pretty handily.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite play of the week is taking LSU -4 at home, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they're at -4 at home. I honestly think that they could win this game by 30. I don't expect USC to be good at all this year. I do think LSU has a chance to crack the top 12, and I think they start the year hot at home. SEC defensive, line and offensive line should dominate. Like Jake said, the defense for USC supposedly got better. I think I've been hearing that for the last 15 years, and they continuously suck, as well as having Miller Moss is going to go in there at QB for USC. Don't expect much from him or USC just at all. I really like the play of LSU -20 is plus 480 right now. I like that because it's just three scores. They're at home, and I do think that they could win this game by 30, 40. I think it's really going to be, can USC put up 25 points on them? And I don't know about that with their offense. It'll be interesting to see how they do, but I expect USC's defense to give up 40 plus as they did all last year.
Yeah, if they don't have their secondary figured out by this first game, it's going to be LSU throwing the ball all over them. I did look it up. It is at a neutral site in Raiders Stadium in Vegas this year to open the season. So maybe that'll give the USC fans a little bit of a chance to make it a home game for them, but I doubt it. I just think that LSU is going to come in. They're the SEC team. They obviously have a lot of their players returning from last year that aren't the quarterback. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how LSU looks this year to open it up. I think they're going to be able to handle USC, and hopefully USC will be able to kind of grow their identity and just be able to figure out things with Miller Moss and just exactly how the offense is going to work. But yeah, I don't expect it to be pretty from them at all. The next game is we got Pitt versus Kent State. Obviously, the last few years, Pitt hasn't been the greatest, but Kent State has always been like right there with staying in games. So we're taking plus 25 for them in this one. Pitt's always been kind of rocky to start the year, so it just makes sense in this one.
Yeah, I think they only won 3 or 4 games last year. One of them was a big upset. I believe it was against UNC at the end of the game. Don't
Yeah.
think they're that good. Kent State can usually run the football pretty well, so excited to see what they can do. At least if they're running it, the clock should be ticking, and Pittsburgh's just not been great. So I think 25 is easy to be able to cover that.
Yeah, I agree. Then next we got Minnesota and UNC. Obviously, this one's going to be in Minnesota, first game of the year. Minnesota's actually home underdogs at this point. Without Drake May, I don't expect UNC to be as good. I'm sure it's going to be a tough game, but I just feel like two is not enough, especially for a home team. And if it's cold in Minnesota yet, I don't know what the weather's looking like out there, but I feel like that's going to give them the advantage because they've had the ability to practice in that. So we'll see kind of what the UNC squad can bring out there. But for now, I'm touching Minnesota -2, or sorry, Minnesota +2. They're the
Yeah, I don't really have
underdogs.
much of I don't have much of a lean on this one. I don't think either team's going to have that good of a season, so I'm probably going to stay away from it. If I had a lean, I would just take the home team, being Minnesota.
Yeah, and right now they're not even laying a field goal, so I feel like that's solid. Got Toledo and Duquesne playing. Toledo 4 touchdown favorites. Talk a little bit more why about you like them.
Yeah, they had a really good team last year. They were able to move the football really well, put up a lot of points on the board. I think Duquesne is some no-name team. I mean, people know about them through hoops a little bit, but not football. Toledo's a team that can go put up 56, and I don't think Duquesne's going to go out there and put up 28. So I think Toledo should be able to cover the four scores.
Yep, I like that. So Toledo -28, and then we also got Tulane -25 against Southeast Louisiana. Talk a little
Mhm.
bit more about Tulane. I know they lost their quarterback, but they're still a pretty solid squad overall with good coaches.
Yeah, they've had a bunch of 10-win seasons the last few years. Obviously, Michael Pratt, a big part of that, but they're also able to run the football, and they've had a really good defensive team as well as a defensive front seven. So I do think being able to dominate, I don't think they're going to give up too many points. You would think they'd be able to score 30 plus as they were doing consistently the last few years.
Yep, completely agree. And then we got UGA and Clemson. That's probably going to be another one of the main eye candies from this weekend. Got two really good defenses that are headed up against each other in the first game of the week of the year. So really looking forward to that. I'm taking UGA -13.5. I don't think Clemson's going to have any sort of offensive firepower. I do think that maybe for the first half they'll be able to hold Georgia's offense just because it's the first game and they're not going to exactly have everything figured out. That and even last year, Georgia in the first half wasn't the greatest team. So it would make sense that it's going to be a close game in the first half. But I expect that their offense will make a couple key mistakes and they'll either be pick sixes or fumble return for touchdowns or super big special teams plays that just ends up taking them out of the game. And I expect Georgia to cover.
Yeah, I originally wasn't leaning on any play for this just because I expect Dabo Sweeney to have a bounce back year with Clemson after sucking last year. But you can't do the same thing and expect different results. So I don't think
Yeah.
Cade Klubnik, I don't think he's any good. And also, I do think Georgia's been waiting for this game for the last 8 months. Obviously,
Yeah.
getting screwed out of the top four. I'm still mad about it for them. I know that they lost the SEC championship game, but you're not supposed to get punished for losing a championship game, and they were number one until that point. So I think Kirby Smart's got this whole season circled, ready to go against all the best
Yeah.
teams. And so I do think they'll cover that 13 and a half and probably see a pick six out of Cade Klubnik.
Yeah, I agree. And also look for maybe a special teams prop. I think for sure that somewhere there could be either a kickoff or a punt return for touchdown in that game from Georgia. Then we all got Penn State going into West Virginia into that atmosphere for game one of the year. Penn State's only an 8 point favorite. Obviously, they're away, so you're not going to get a lot away. But I do feel like 8 points isn't quite enough for that team. I expect them to win by 10 points at least, maybe two touchdowns.
Yeah, I remember working that game last year, that matchup, and it ended up being a close game. For a good part of it, I think it ended up being right around that 10 line. I am interested to see how the game goes. I know a lot of people that are high on West Virginia with Garrett Green at quarterback. People think he's a stud who can sling it. I think he is decent. I think Penn State's defense is too good. I could see him getting a couple late scores to maybe make it close. But I definitely think a 34-24 is realistic, where Penn State would be covering, if not even more than that.
Yeah, I agree. Then we got Iowa and Illinois State. Obviously, last year Iowa was just an absolute tailwind to ride on the unders. I think they hit in like every single game up until week 10 or week 11, something like that. I'm gonna ride that again just because I'm excited as hell. It's 40.5 to start the season against Illinois State. Iowa's offense, I don't think has gotten much better. They may put up 30 or 35, but it'll likely be like 35-3. So I'm taking them to ride under 40.5 for sure to open the year.
Yeah, I don't really have a preference on that game, but I know some of their over-unders last year were at 23, 26. And so the fact it's at 40, I'll take the under there with you. I
Right
don't
on.
think Illinois State's going to be able to score more than seven, probably won't score at all unless it's like a kickoff return touchdown to start the game. So, yeah, I'll ride the under 40.
Right on. And then Alabama minus 31 against Western Kentucky. I'm kind of back and forth on that, but it is a good chance for Milrow with a new coaching staff to kind of show what they're all about. So obviously there is a good chance that they go in there and win by 60. I'm just not too sure on that team and how it's going to look yet with their recruiting class, but I love minus 31. Obviously it's Western Kentucky, and they have a point to make, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Western Kentucky was able to move the football in recent years, and I think that's
Hmm.
why it's only a 31 line. Because
Yeah,
if you watch Ohio State's and Michigan's and those kind of teams come out to start the year, they usually win by 60, as does Oregon. And so
yeah,
I do think Alabama covers 31. Also, the Western Kentucky identity has been in Austin Reed, I believe was his name, who was the quarterback there for about 5 years. And Malachi Corley was a great receiver that I believe the Jets picked. But they're both gone. I don't think Western Kentucky's going to be able to move the ball. They probably score 10 points max, all in the first
yeah.
half. And then I think Alabama's going to be able to put up at least 50 on them. Obviously, they sometimes start slow. It'll be interesting. Obviously, Milrow, Saban's gone, so it'll be interesting to see what Kalen does. But Kalen's offense has been phenomenal at Washington. Expect to see the same at Alabama.
Yeah, I agree. If you are kind of like me and you're a little bit shaky on how you think Alabama's offense might look, might be a good game to look at the under because I'm sure the over is going to be a little bit juiced at maybe like 56 or something like that. And if it may be like a 35 to 10, 35 to 3 game as well, maybe even 40 to 10, you're looking under 50. So that might be a decent prop to look at. Then we got Cal and UC Davis. This is kind of a fun one for us here in California, or for me here in California, not necessarily you at the moment. But Cal usually plays the opening 4 games of the season really well, and then as soon as they would get into Pac-12 play, they'd start to stumble. So I expect that to be kind of no different this year. UC Davis has kind of been a team that we've all seen in the Pac-12 over the years, and we've all kind of been able to handle. They are a pretty strong team in Division Two, so I expect them to kind of put up a tough fight in the first half. But I expect Cal's defense to be able to manage the game really well. And with the field position being really good, I just expect them to be able to cover 3 scores.
Yeah, I don't really have a lean for this game. I'm kind of going to be rooting for the Aggies just because
Yeah.
we obviously know Nick's going to be here and we'll be rooting for the Aggies with him. But yeah, three scores. Uh, I don't like Cal, so I don't love them to cover. I would prefer Aggies, but I know there's a lot of money on the Aggies to cover, which makes me think Cal will probably end up
Yeah.
covering 20. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, 100%. Then we also got Boise State and Georgia Southern. Boise State's a favorite as an away team, but they are a pretty good team. Georgia Southern has been good in the last few years. So I think I am going to buy the line down from where it's at to Boise State minus 6.5. I do like them to win by a score. I just don't know how easy this game's going to be. Georgia Southern's known to not make these games easy on their opponents, but it doesn't mean they always come out with a W. So I do expect Boise State to cover a touchdown. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, again, I don't have much of a lean there. I'm pretty sure Georgia Southern ended up like 6 wins last year, even though they started off pretty strong. I'm pretty sure that's where Ed Orgeron's at, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm,
So they got a decent coach over there, but Boise State, again, keeps coming out with 10, 11 wins, and so I think they'll be able to handle them. I do think they'll probably cover that touchdown, like you said, so I like buying it down to that. They run the football well. We'll be interested to see how they throw it this year.
yeah, 100%. And then we got Baylor and Tarleton State. Right now, Baylor's only getting 26 and a half. I feel like that's too low of a number. I don't know Tarleton State very well, but I do know Baylor, and Baylor is an offense that can put up a lot of points. So if that's going to happen, I expect this to be like a 56 to 14 game, and they should cover 26 and a half.
Agreed. Yep,
So
that's about it.
yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
Yep.
Then we got Houston against UNLV. I believe that Houston is the home team in that. They're 2.5 point
Mhm.
favorites against UNLV. I feel like that's a pretty low line. I don't know if maybe the line odds makers have a better view on what the
Mhm.
rosters look like side by side than I do, but I feel like Houston minus 2.5 would be the play there. I don't know kind of what everybody else is on, but that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Houston still has Donovan Smith as their quarterback, and if they do, they should be able to move the ball well on offense. I know he's got a little bit of turnover issue, But I do think Houston should be able to win, especially if it's at home.
Yeah, 100%. And then we got Rice and Sam Houston State. I think Rice is like 13-point favorites, maybe 8,
10.
10-point favorites. Anyways, I'm buying it down to 6.5. I also expect Rice just got Kurt Warner's son as their starting quarterback,
Hmm.
EJ. So I expect him to have a good game. Rice also had a pretty solid team last season. So if they kind of have a majority of that roster still around, I feel like they should be able to kind of build around EJ Warner with some recruits. So if they are able to do that, they should be able to win this game by a touchdown versus Sam Houston State.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be an interesting game. EJ play, assuming he's the starter. I don't know if they named it, but I'm assuming he will be.
Yeah.
I think obviously just going off of Kurt Warner being a stud, I expect his son to be good, and the quarterback's what leads the team, especially for college. So excited to see how that goes, and I'll take him at -10.
Yeah, right on. And then a couple more BYU against Southern Illinois.
Hmm.
BYU, I think, is a 14.5 point favorite now. Was 13.5 a little bit ago. I'm going to buy it back down to 13.5 and just take it. I feel like 2 scores is plenty. BYU is, I think, at home. Maybe not. I can't remember. But,
Yeah, they're at
anyways,
Lavelle Edwards.
okay. Yeah. Then I feel like 13.5, 14.5. Either way, it's probably not going to be enough. They should cover 3 scores, I think, at least 17 points. So for that reason, I'm taking BYU.
Yep, I'll take BYU too. Go Cougs.
Right on. And then the last game on our slate for week one, UW and Weber State. UW is 27.5 point favorites, just under 4 scores. I'm going to go ahead and take them to cover the 4 scores. Obviously, they're going to have a new coach. They got Belichick, Steve Belichick, his son, as their defensive coordinator. And then obviously, they got a new head coach. But I really think that Washington is going to be able to build back a little bit of what they lost last season. I don't think they're going to get the Penix back at quarterback, obviously, but if they have anything close, then they should be able to beat Weber State by 4 touchdowns. So I'm going to ride that.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch it just because I don't know anything about them. I know they lost Penix, McMillan, Odunze, and
Yeah.
Jalen Polk. So the entire offense is going to look different. Obviously, coaching, like you mentioned. So I'll stay away, but I hope the Huskies go out there and get it done.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, that's going to do it for our week one college picks. Thanks, guys, for tuning in the last few weeks. We really appreciate it. And kind of stay tuned. We're going to be shelling out more NFL picks coming up soon. Week one's coming up, I think, in a couple weeks here. So yeah, we're
Hmm.
stoked to get that out to you guys soon. And yeah, until then, stay safe. Peace out. Have a great week.